Welcome to the 25th week of this year's In Times Like These recap. Now, let's get into this. Starting with Pacho Torres, who mentions to his mother Isabel that with Devante and Isidore out of her life, she can focus on running Theodosius's palace. Isabel questions why Pacho mentioned Isidore. Pacho points out that it must have hurt to learn of Isidore and Alan's scheme to take over the hotel, since she once loved Isidore. He goes on to ask if it hurts less since she's no longer in love with Isidore. Upon hearing this, Isabel questions why Pacho is concerned about her love life. Pacho states that he's concerned about her. Isabel tells her son that there's nothing that he needs to concern himself with. He goes on to question if that means she won't let Isidore back into her life. Once again, Isabel brings up the fact that what Isidore did was unforgivable. Pacho points out that Isabel terminating the pregnancy is also seen as unforgivable, which Isabel doesn't appreciate. The point that Pacho is trying to make is that Isidore seemed to have forgiven her for her choice, questioning if it's possible that she could find herself forgiving Isidore again. This is a question which she refuses to answer. In Lorenzo Russo's office, he speaks with Vivian Jones. Unaware of the fact that she's his illegitimate daughter, Vivian goes on to ask him what he remembers about Isidore's relationship with Isabel Torres. When Lorenzo asks Vivian why she wants to know, she answers that Isidore seemed troubled lately and that Alan suggested it might have something to do with Isabel. Upon hearing this, Lorenzo admits that the happiest he'd seen Isidore was when he and Isabel were together. He goes on to say that after finding out that Isabel terminated the pregnancy, Clarice doesn't want Isidore and Isabel to get back together. Vivian feels like she could use this information against Clarice. Isidore walks in, overhearing the conversation, and doesn't appreciate being talked about when he's present. Vivian apologizes, then walks off. When Vivian's gone, Lorenzo asks his son if he's still in love with Isabel. When Isidore reminds Lorenzo that Isabel will never forgive him, Lorenzo states that it's not fair since Isidore forgave her. Finnegan Burke is impressed by his son Kiev's new look, asking what brought upon the change. Kiev admits that it was to impress a girl, but doesn't tell his father about his obsession with Vanessa Dorval. As Kiev is inside of his room, he stumbles across an incel forum. At the Dorval estate, Vanessa reveals to her parents, Jeremiah and Shelley, that she's been stalked, which troubles them. When they hear how Vanessa received the threatening texts, they decide to get the police involved. After Vanessa fills her parents in on what's been happening, she calls her best friend, Yulisa Torres. Unaware that Kiev set up a camera in her room, Kiev is furious at the fact that Vanessa sees him as some sort of monster. On Juneteenth, the Dorvals arrive at Theodosius's palace for the event that Wanda and Udell set up. Upon learning about Vanessa's stalker, Jeremiah, Shelley, and Raymond wonder if it's safe for Vanessa to be at the Juneteenth event. Jeremiah goes on to express that he would rather someone have a normal crush on his daughter than knowing she's in danger. Shelley goes on to ask her husband if that also means he would be okay if Max Russo were to pursue Vanessa. Jeremiah feels like Max has a lot of growing to do before he tries pursuing Vanessa again. JJ and Vanessa approach Yulisa after discussing the stalker. Kiev walks up to the group, who is surprised by his new look. They're even more surprised when Yvette walks up and hear that the two of them are allegedly becoming friends. Seeing Vivian show up at Theodosius's palace, Pacho tells her how glad he is to see that she stopped by. Vivian goes on to inform Pacho that it's her birthday and she wanted to find a way to celebrate it. As they speak, Pacho learns that Vivian was raised by a single mother, but didn't get as far as to learn that Lorenzo Russo is her father. Isabel walks up to them, meeting Vivian for the first time. Pacho and Vivian explain to Isabel how they met. Then Vivian informs Isabel that she works for Isidore at Russo Jewelers. She goes on to tell Isabel how she's aware of her history with Isidore, but Isabel doesn't discuss it further. Once Isabel walks off, Pacho asks Vivian not to push Isidore towards Isabel. Vivian tells Pacho that she doesn't have to do that, but Clarice could. Wanda and Udell state how glad they are that things have been successfully set up for the Juneteenth event. As soon as they're on the same page, Owen arrives, upsetting Udell as he sees his wife hugging Owen. Owen tries to tell Udell that he didn't want to make trouble, but Udell feels like he did because he accepted Wanda's invitation. Wanda tries to keep peace between the two men, but Udell has more to say, asking Owen to tell Wanda exactly why he's only focused on having Wanda as his only friend. Wanda tells Owen that he doesn't have to sink down to her husband's level, walking away from Udell. As Owen follows, he tells Wanda that he could leave. She refuses to let him go, telling Owen that she'll catch up with him, telling Owen that he could try to interact with other people while she speaks with Udell. Placing his hand on the side of Wanda's face, he tells her that he'll wait for her, walking off, making Wanda feel something new for him. When Max arrives at the Russo estate after finishing up work, Heidi and Johnny inform them that Vanessa's being stalked and that the stalker threatened Max's life. Since they're concerned about Max's safety, they urge him to stay away from Vanessa, but Max convinces his parents to change their minds. On the phone with Kiev, Yvette tells him not to flatter himself and that they still have a lot of work to win the people they're after. Terry interrupts Kiev's phone call, hoping that her son doesn't try to change his behavior along with his new style. Kiev is unwilling to listen to his mother's advice, feeling like she doesn't have any worthy advice to offer, since he believes that his mother's a lonely woman. While Wanda is at Confidence Designs, she thinks back to when Owen touched the side of her face at Theodosius's palace. He enters in, telling Wanda that he hopes that he didn't offend her the other day. Wanda claims that he didn't, but Owen wonders why she hasn't responded to his texts and calls. The answer she gives is that she's been busy, but Owen doesn't buy it. Finally deciding to be honest, she tells Owen that she feels embarrassed by Udell's behavior the other day. Owen claims that she has nothing to feel embarrassed about. Owen reminds Wanda that Udell had his heart broken by Elvira, wondering if Udell fears like Wanda will do the same thing. Wanda tells Owen that she loves her husband and wouldn't hurt him intentionally. Owen goes on to ask how she would feel if she unintentionally fell for someone else. Wanda tells Owen that she loves her husband, but Owen responds by telling Wanda that he's in love with her, kissing her. To her relief, Wanda wakes up to find that she was only dreaming, but the fact that she dreamt about her friend in a romantic way troubles her. Before leaving Russo Jewelers, Vivian asks Alan if he could do her a favor by speaking to Clarice about backing off if Isidore decides to pursue Isabel. With some convincing, Alan agrees. Once he walks off, Vivian feels like she has the Russo family exactly where she wants them. After finishing work, Max runs into Vanessa, telling her that he's aware of her being stalked, asking why she didn't tell him anything. She explains to him that she didn't want to be the reason why he continued to suffer after everything he'd been through. Since Max is a born-again Christian, he reminds Vanessa that God will help him through his struggles, but understands Vanessa's intention. Vanessa apologizes to Max for keeping secrets from him, which he forgives. Then the two friends embrace. Unbeknownst to them, Kiev is watching them from afar, being furious with Max. At Theodosius' palace, Yulissa asks her older sister Nichelle why it seems like she's in a bad mood. Once Nichelle claims to be fine, Yulissa questions if Zeke is responsible for the emotion she's feeling. Nichelle reminds Yulissa that it's only been a month since she and Zeke had been together, wishing that Yulissa wouldn't think the worst of him so early on. Yulissa tells her sister that she can't blame her after Zeke's previous behavior. Nichelle tries to explain that Zeke has changed to the point where he wants to take things slow with her. First, Yulissa hopes that Nichelle decides to wait for marriage before she decides to sleep with anyone, but Nichelle isn't willing to listen to her younger sister's advice. Yulissa also questions if Zeke wants to take things slow because he's getting his needs met somewhere else. Before she walks off, Yulissa urges Nichelle to think long and hard about what she said. At Quinlan Franklin's apartment, her younger brother Zeke watches X-rated videos just as Quinlan walks into the room. Quinlan urges Zeke to stop or tell Nichelle how he spends his free time. But when Zeke doesn't seem willing to listen to his sister's advice, she suggests that he might be addicted. This is something that Zeke is unwilling to accept, walking off before Ben comes in to watch movies with Quinlan. When Heidi arrives at Theodosius's palace, she runs into Pacho, who tells her that he's aware of her issues with Quinlan. Because of this, Heidi questions if he made himself Quinlan's protector. The answer which Pacho gives is that he'll protect any of his employees. Heidi responds by telling Pacho that he can't deny that Quinlan is a beautiful woman. Pacho is confused by the point Heidi is trying to make. She reminds him that his father Devante could never resist a beautiful woman. Annoyed, Pacho walks away from Heidi, who feels like she has everything under control when trying to keep Quinlan away from her son Ben. Can't get enough of the crazy world of In Times Like These? Then treat yourself to a binge watch of In Times Like These. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You're not ready for what's to come, but tune in anyway.